Hello, and welcome to the State of 911 webinar series hosted by the NHTSA National 911 Program. My name is Brian Tegmeyer, and I will be your moderator for today's session. This webinar series is designed to provide useful information for the 911 stakeholder community about federal, state, and local participation in advancing 911 technology and operations. It includes real experiences from leaders working to enhance roadway safety through the safe system approach. In today's session, we will begin with a discussion on the role of 911 in the safe system approach to roadway safety. Then we will hear a spotlight presentation on utilizing Waze data in 911 center operations. Following each of these presentations, we will have a couple minutes for live Q&A. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted on 911.gov. For more information on the State of 911 webinars, access to archived recordings, or to learn more about NHTSA's National 911 program, please visit 911.gov. Feedback or questions about the webinars can be sent to nhtsa.national911@dot.gov. NHTSA's 911 program would like to remind participants about the Docs and Tools page of the 911.gov website. This page includes its updated resources and improved access to policy documents, plans, reports, and other tools for stakeholders. We encourage submission of any content to be shared with the 911 community. Submissions can be made through the online submission form available on the Docs and Tools page or by scanning the QR code. Additionally, we encourage you to visit the 911 telecommunicator Tree of Life at 911treeoflife.org. By scanning the QR code, you can share the name of a remarkable 911 telecommunicator who has inspired you and honor their contributions to the 911 community. For closed captioning, hover at the bottom of the Zoom screen for meeting controls, then click the CC button to start viewing the captioning. Please note that all participants' phone lines have been put in listen-only mode, and this webinar is being recorded. To ask questions of our presenters, please use Zoom's Q&A feature located at the bottom of your screen. You may enter your questions at any time during the presentation. These will be provided to the presenters and addressed at the conclusion of the presentation. If there is not enough time, the questions will be answered and posted with the webinar recording and presentation to 911.gov. With that, I would like to introduce our first session and panelists, the role of 911 in the safe system approach. Today we have April Heinze, VP and Chief of 911 Operations for the National Emergency Number Association, Ty Wooten, Director of Government Affairs, International Academies of Emergency Dispatch, and Rick Birt, Director, DC Highway Safety Office and the Governor's Highway Safety Association. Thank you. April, if you can go ahead.
I'm not seeing the slides. Sorry.
Oh. We are on the first slide, the safe system approach.
Okay. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing the slides, so I'll just keep going. So 911 touches pretty much every aspect of the safe systems approach. From safer people, so let's talk about safer people a little bit. 911 receives calls on anything from a person walking down the side of the road on a major busy interstate to a reckless driver, distracted driver, motorist assist along the side of the road, folks driving under the influence, etc. So that aspect, the safer people aspect, covers pretty much all of that. When it comes to safer roads, the safer roads includes calls for debris, traffic hazards, lights out, broken down motorists, and many other things. I'm sorry, Brian, but I'm not seeing the slides. So, and I got a note, a ding when
go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so when it comes to safer speeds, the safer speeds, 911 is the hub of the 911, as 911 centers play the huge role, the biggest role in the enforcement of traffic and speed. So from receiving a call from somebody driving 100 miles an hour, weaving in and out of traffic, to responding to law enforcement officers requesting assistance with running a plate, calling in a traffic stop, and recording all of the activities of those different types of incidents. When it comes to safer vehicles, one of the things that 911 receives, we receive calls using automatic crash or advanced automatic crash notifications. Those calls are received in many different ways. When we receive those calls, we can receive those calls from things and devices, from smartphones to smart devices, calling a 911 center on behalf of somebody who's been involved in an accident, to the car itself calling the 911 center, doing an assisted dial, also from telematic service providers. So there's any number of various different ways that 911 receives those calls. Now, mind you, those types of calls are also somewhat complicated because each and every one of those types of calls are received slightly differently. So the 911 professional will have to determine different pieces of information from different types of calls that way. In addition, there's also the post-crash care. So post-crash care really begins when that 911 call is placed. The 911 professional will have to identify the location, vehicle description, specific details of the incident. And each of those incidents are different, so they're going to be specific details for one thing that isn't a part of another thing. Also providing pre-arrival instructions. So next slide. 911 is the first critical step in the life-saving system. And that step starts with the 911 call. Now, mind you, I just talked about all of these different things that 911 receives. Well, there's also large volumes, especially on larger interstates. So if you receive a call on a vehicle crash on an interstate, 911 will receive any number of calls. It can be from one on in the middle of the night to 50, depending on how big the crash is and how many people are driving down that road at that given time. It's also not limited to just crashes. Anything that somebody calls 911 on in a preventative way is something that 911 will receive a call on. Talked about motorist assist. We talked about various different types of debris in the road, etc. Also, the various different types of situations. You get calls for people from, there's something going on with the road itself. Maybe the road is heaving in the middle of the summer, and it's caused a crash, or people are swerving to miss those types of things. Okay, next slide. And I believe it's Ty.
Thank you, April. As we begin and we look at the emergency response that April described and how it affects the safe systems approach, we have to take a look at all of the different emergency responses to crashes, right? So we know that each year approximately 13 million motor vehicle crashes occur, and we believe that somewhere around 6 million crashes out of those 13 million, law enforcement is dispatched to, recognizing that some may have different aspects and different agencies may not send on every individual crash. And we also know that 911 dispatches about 1.5 million times each year to EMS and fire for responses to those crashes. And when a crash happens, we have a role in keeping the roadway safe by preventing secondary crashes and other hazardous conditions, not only for field responders, but other people in the public. We also have an identification of an understanding that out of the 5,400 911 centers across the United States, in that 1.5 million crashes that we are dispatching EMS to, when EMS arrives on the scene, 40% of the people who ultimately may succumb to their injuries, 40% of them were alive when EMS arrived. That means that we can have an impact and truly have an impact on the number of people who ultimately die and are succumb to their injuries. The opportunity is here is a chance to improve what we're doing and saving more lives. And we can do that through a whole host of number of different ways. And 911 has a critical impact on ensuring and helping to mitigate those deaths by replacing outdated technology, making it more easy or quicker to locate crash victims, as well as providing post-crash care through things like emergency medical dispatch, which we'll talk about in a second. Also, 911 telecommunicators and 911 professionals across the country have a role in understanding and being a part of the traffic incident management system, or TIM. Effective traffic incident management can help to reduce the duration of an impacts of traffic incidents by improving the safety of emergency responders and reduce the frequency of secondary crashes. We'd encourage you to go utilize the QR code that's here on this screen and on this slide to get more information about free online training provided by the Federal Highway Administration about PIM management. But locating that crash, coordinating the response of all public safety responders, and knowing who to send, how much to send, and if we were to send lights and sirens, if those are needed, these all have an impact to mitigating additional crashes and saving lives as we work through the safe systems approach. And as we talk about understanding the use of protocol systems, we know through data that we've collected through the National 911 program that 43% of PSAPs today are providing some sort of emergency medical dispatch and follow a specific protocol. This results in the appropriate use of lights and sirens, as we just spoke about, knowing what to send and how to send it can make an impact on those things that, and help reduce secondary crashes, whether it be field responders responding to the crash, on their way, or by, making sure that we're sending the appropriate response and providing countermeasures. We know that whether it be emergency medical dispatch or police dispatching or fire protocols, the use of these protocols is a clinical countermeasure and providing information to bystanders to help begin to create and provide care on the scene, improves post-crash care, and improves the survivability of those victims that we were talking about earlier. Utilization of these protocols, responding to 911 or having 911 telecommunicators utilizing these systems help us to obtain those critical incident data and details, and again, provide those pre-arrival instructions and dispatching the most appropriate resources to ensure that we get the right people to the scene at the right time. And that may include, gaining information specifically in maybe in rural areas where there may be a long commute to or response time, You know, that may mean that understanding what's going on the scene immediately may provide the telecommunicator with the ability to launch a helicopter or other mechanisms that they may not normally respond in those kind of situations. So all of these things, all of that data helps to provide a better response. And that's how 911 can have a huge impact in not only the post-crash care, but ensuring that we help to increase the survivability of all crashes that occur. And I think I'm turning back over to April.
Yep. So 911's role in highway safety, we really have 4 different areas of opportunity to work with the highway safety program. That is it's that of operations, where operations is concerned, the highway safety program can assist us with training from anything from call taking protocols to traffic incident management training to the minimum training guidelines that have been created for the 911 profession. Those minimum training guidelines, by the way, are being updated, and those should hit the market here soon. In addition, you've got in GIS, where geographic information systems are concerned, grant opportunities to update your NG911 compliancy, ensure that there is better information from the caller, and identifying your boundaries. And then there's the data opportunities. Data uniformity is an integral part of providing accurate data. And there's also opportunities where there's potential for automated collection, operational, technical, and administrative data. And it also includes interoperability. The key piece here is the collaborate and coordination of all of these various different pieces. And now I think it is over to Rick.
Thanks, April. Really appreciate that. And hello, everyone. Rick Birt, I'm the director of the DC Highway Safety Office. If you're not familiar with your Highway Safety Office, I think you're missing an opportunity for partnership and collaboration. You can visit GHSA, the Governor's Highway Safety Association, GHSA.org, to find your local highway safety office. And as April just highlighted, there are lots of ways that highway safety offices, just like mine, are working with our 911 centers all across the country. The first opportunity recently, GHSA and NHTSA collaborated on a post-crash care summit. And what we were able to do through this summit was bring together many elements of the post-crash care community to look at the ecosystem that is post-crash care. And I think you've already heard a little bit from Ty and April about what that role of 911 is, but certainly we as highway safety offices saw this as an opportunity to kind of peek behind the curtain and understand the role of 911 at a deeper level. For those of you who have been in mobility safety for quite some time, you might remember the 4 E's, which preceded the safe system approach. And when we got to emergency response as that 4th E, I will be honest and say that, you know, as a traffic safety professional, I always struggled, how do I help in this arena, right? I'm not a 911 call taker. CAD, what's that? There's lots of opportunities to learn, and that's really what came about as this post-crash care summit. We were able to see that there are opportunities to collaborate. We each need to learn a little bit more about each other. And so I so appreciate Brian and his team inviting me to do just that, to speak a little bit about what highway safety offices are and how we can work with you, the frontline warriors who are helping keep our communities safe. We are very open as your highway safety office to find out what your challenges are. We have certainly some ideas, and certainly with our funding, there are some limitations, but we're very open to having a conversation. And that's what I'm hoping that you'll do today, that you'll leave this webinar, you'll reach out to your HSO director, your HSO team, and you'll say, hey, let's have a conversation, and be prepared to talk about the challenges that you face. April just gave a great overview of those 4 columns of the ways that 911 plays a role in post-crash care. look back at that slide and think about where are there gaps maybe in your operations or opportunities for enhancement. Where can your office be a leader, particularly in your region or with some of the other elements within the ecosystem of post-crash care? How can we increase opportunities to partner with our trauma centers? How can we increase opportunities to work with the medical community? There's lots of potential there, and you all are really that first step in making sure that we get quality post-crash care to those who have been affected by crashes. And so I hope you'll do that. Come with a long wish list would be one of my best tips for you, because there is such a novelty in working in this space. I think all of us as HSO directors are looking for ways to try innovation, to try new things that will breed success. I'm thrilled that our office has given a grant to NESEMSO, the National Association of EMS Officials, to create what I believe is the first post-crash care liaison. We have Ali Chavez on our team. She's a NESEMSO employee, but she sits in our office, and she's really tasked with being a liaison between all of the pillars of the post-crash care ecosystem to find ways to work together with our fire and EMS, to find ways to support our Office of Unified Communications and to support 911 in the district, to work with our regional partners. Certainly the district is unique. We are not a state, and so we very much are a place of transaction and a place where people pass through. And so, working with our neighboring jurisdictions, Maryland and Virginia, is really key. And so Ali is taking on all of those elements and more to help us really carve a path and to find a path of how we can work more in this space. We've also given a grant to the Office of Unified Communications, which is our district 911 center. OUC is doing exactly what April described. We're working with them to update their CAD and to do some software updates, to find ways to make better the flow of information from the units that are in the field to our 911 dispatch center. We're also doing advanced training to, again, give our call takers more confidence in how they handle a car crash and the complexities that are in that space. We're encouraging them to take TEMS, which you already heard Ty talk about as a great resource from our Federal Highways partner. And we're also exploring other opportunities to get our 911 center into the community to talk about post-crash care as a pillar of community outreach, engagement, and education. So we've seen lots of great results. We're about 4 months into our partnership, and already we're finding new ways to collaborate. In our case, because we are the Highway Safety Office, we also have some relationships with other government agencies that perhaps our 911 centers didn't have access to. We have abilities to mobilize our Department's transportation, to work with our state highway patrol or state police, to engage the medical examiner and some of those elements of the community. So again, as you're thinking about meeting with your Highway Safety Office director, which I hope you will do, think about what relationships do you need strengthened? What partnerships could your office benefit from? And then as you go to your Highway Safety Office, say, hey, could you make an introduction to? You can visit their website where you can find something called the Annual Grant Application, or the AGA. This will be a document that every Highway Safety Office submits to NHTSA that outlines the projects and priorities of our office. So you can see what projects are being funded, how the money is being distributed. We have many different types of funding that come from different sections of the 402 and 405 arena. So there's some flexibility in how your office or how the Highway Safety Office might be able to fund your project. So that's a good read as well to understand the priorities of your HSO and how you might be able to work with them as a partner. I keep saying the word partner because I hope if nothing else, you'll leave with the understanding that HSOs want to work with you. We want to have a deeper understanding of this last component, because you're our last chance. When we've gotten to you, we've failed in other elements of our safe system approach. And so we are truly counting on you to help us figure out, how do we reduce some of those scary numbers that you saw just a moment ago? How do we innovate? How do we better support you and our EMS partners, our medical partners, so that we can truly not make Vision Zero just a watchword or a phrase, but truly something we're moving towards. And I truly appreciate, on behalf of GHSA and my office, all the work that you do, and truly appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about how we might work together. I'll share my contact information if I can be of any help in introducing you to your HSO director. Please don't hesitate to contact me. And with that, I will turn it back over to Brian. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, April, Ty, and Rick, for that great information on 911's role in post-crash care. happy to take any questions from the audience if you want to put them into the Q&A chat. But let me start with a question for Rick right away. Rick, I think you had a great talking about, introducing yourself to the Highway Safety Office. I think it's important for the 911 community to understand, though, that this is like building a new relationship. It's probably not existent, right? So, I mean, do you think highway safety offices are starting to learn more about post-crash care? And if so, are they even thinking that 911's a role in that? Or is that where we've got to build these relationships?
I think it's all the above, Brian. I mean, I think there's certainly an acknowledgement now, particularly as we've all moved to the safe system approach, that 911 is that launch pad to post-crash care. Now, again, what do we do with 911? I think that's where we're all still learning, and I think we're learning together. And so that's why I encourage folks to come with your wish list, to do an environmental scan as you look at how your agency responds to a crash, and think about where those opportunities for improvement are. That's going to help your highway safety office better understand the circumstances in which you're working, better understand the dynamics of post-crash care, and also better position your agency to receive funding. That's one of the great things about our relationship with the highway safety office, is that we come with funding, and so we're able to provide one-time funding to address short-term challenges, ongoing funding for longer-term projects, and so there really is an opportunity to not only build a camaraderie, which I do think, as you described, kind of has to start from square one, that first part of the relationship, but then can blossom into something that's really been beneficial. And I so appreciate our 911 director being such a great partner now to our office as we think about, again, our shared vision of reducing roadway trauma, injury, and fatalities, and 911's got to be a part of that.
Thank you so much. Great answer, Rick. So April and Ty, you were both part of that GHSA post-crash care summit. Did you see the light bulbs going off with regards to 911's involvement? I mean, I think there was a lot of discussion about that. If either one of you want to jump in on that.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was very beneficial for 911 to have the conversations. It was interesting how many of the vehicle manufacturers that were not aware of where 911 was at.
Right, and I would add that I think that there was a lot of folks in the summit that we had in DC a few months ago were a lot of them from the highway safety administrations from the states, and the number of them who didn't quite understand all of the aspects that 911 touches relative to the safety of the roadways. I think everybody kind of fixates on that one aspect of post-crash care, but when you begin to peel back the layers of the onion to understand that there are so many aspects that we touch on a daily basis, whether it's every wheel that we turn, whether it's for a crash or not, is having an impact on traffic and safety on our roadways. And I think getting them to kind of see that is an important aspect, and understanding the capabilities of what 911 can do through things like emergency medical dispatch and other protocol use that was kind of important and exciting for them to have those light bulbs go off at that moment.
Oh, that's great, Ty. And I think that's an important point you brought up, is that, when we're out there talking about this, it's that part of the story that we forget, that every time we take a 911 call, whether we dispatch police, fire, EMS, or we don't dispatch them, it's a potential impact on the lives on the roadway, because emergency responding vehicles are, that vulnerable road users, and it's a very dangerous job getting to an emergency, and both for the emergency vehicles and the motoring public around them. So I think that's great. Well, all three of you, thank you so much for your time. Happy. I don't see any other questions that we have for you at this point. So we're going to move on to our next part of our presentation. And with that, I'd like to introduce our next section speaker, Roger Mann, the Chief Innovation Officer for North Central Texas 911, who's going to talk about utilizing Waze data in 911 center operations. Roger.
Thank you, Brian, and thanks for having me on here. on behalf of Christy Williams and I, the director, we're really thankful for involving us in this. And I'm looking forward to some questions. So I will kick it off with the first slide. I will give you guys a brief overview of the North Central Texas 911 Communication District, what we're doing with our Council of Governments Transportation Department in terms of traffic and navigation technology and our integrated partnerships. I'll also touch on the 511 system that's run by our Transportation Department, and we'll go into some questions later on. Just a brief overview for those of you not familiar with the region. We're a 14-county region around the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, growing very steadily, 156 cities, roughly 10,000 square miles, and 40 emergency communication centers or PSAPs. So it's a large region, population is growing rapidly, and we face obviously a bunch of incidents, but many of them, of course, are related to roadway safety. Here's a map of the region, just showing you the layout of the land here. So we've got the 13 counties that surround the Metroplex. We also have 5 ECCs inside of Dallas County, and we partner with all these different agencies. One of the challenges for us, though, is interoperability between the different districts. So we are working on different technologies to incorporate roadway safety and CAD incidents. We're planning for large events, in particular FIFA, which is coming up in 2026. And we've got various different task forces we're working with, public safety, SWAT teams, hazmat, and we are working very closely now with our transportation department and programs like Safer Streets. So I'll touch on those a bit more. Just to give you another overview here, so we have had E911 since 1991, wireless phase 2, text 911. We've got cloud-based dispatch mapping systems like Rapid Deploy, Rapid SOS in every single call center, real-time text, and we've got analytics that's also cloud-based. We have been in the I3 next-gen space since 2013. We perform geospatial call routing through the emergency call routing function. We've had an EZNet in place for some time. So the agency itself, I'd say, is definitely a cutting-edge agency. We try to test new technology, and then we run a series of pilots, and we present the data to our ECCs and our stakeholders to make sure that it's going to be a good fit for them. The priority for us overall is safety for our citizens, making sure we push the right technology at the right time. And one of those in particular is what we did with Waze. In 2019, I worked very closely with the Transportation Department at the Council of Governments, and we partnered with Waze. And back then, it was called the Waze Connected Citizens Program. And Waze at that point was very interested in bidirectional communication between different partnering agencies. For public safety, it can be a bit of a challenge for a call taker to report back and to give feedback during a live call, because they're basically spending 3 to 5 seconds on a map and it's a 30-second call. So it's very difficult for them to always push data back to Waze. So Waze agreed to allow us to use the feed for public safety without requiring the bidirectional feedback, which is very, very useful for us. And we launched this in 2019. There's actually an article that I placed in the bottom of the slide here, and it covers the sort of the rollout of what we did with Waze and some of the feedback. We noticed that in 2020 was when we actually first started to survey our PSAPs and the ECCs. And there were some really good results from what we could see. So we correlated call data based on different call types and correlated that to the Waze event. And what we noticed is that there was a reduction in certain types of calls. So, sorry, let me step back here 1 second. We noticed that there was a reduction in call traffic for reporting wrecks and abandoned vehicles on the roadways. That was a significant reduction in certain roadways, especially along the corridors, the major highways. And at first, Waze was used a lot around the Metroplex, but we saw it rolling out into more of the rural areas. So the screenshot here is actually of a city called Cleburne in Johnson County, and we're seeing Waze events every single day. In 2019, it wasn't so prolific, and now we're seeing a lot more. So besides just the wrecks and abandoned vehicles, the other thing to point out here is that it's become a lot easier for a driver to report incidents. But look at what they're doing today with Apple and Android in the vehicles. You can report an incident fairly easily, and that has we've seen a reduction in the call traffic for those incidents. What we've done too, though, is we determined that some of the Waze data, although it's very useful, was not super useful for a PSAP. And that's because we are putting a lot of data and a lot of symbology into the map. So we ran the Waze feeds through an Esri geo event server, and we filtered out some of the events. So, for example, road debris, we decided that there was a bit too much noise in the map. There's a lot happening there. So we could filter that out using our technology in-house and partnering with Esri. So that was really useful for us, and we could just put the pertinent information down on the map. Some other things we've seen is that drivers are now able to see where construction zones are. There's less calls to 911 to navigate around construction. And first responders, in fact, use the map and mobile apps as well to navigate around construction zones. We've seen cities such as Frisco, which is in the northeast of our region in Collin County, who proactively monitor Waze events. And if they see that there's a whole bunch of incidents coming for a roadway incident or a crash, they proactively monitor and notify their first responders to get ready to roll out. I'm going to touch on some other things too, some other technology. Waze has been incredibly useful, but in terms of roadway safety and what we're doing as well, we've also incorporated other data into the system, such as dynamic low water sensor technology. So we can monitor several different low water sensors in the region, and those proactively change based on the flow of that particular stream or river. And that also helps us to avoid certain areas. So if there's an incident in an area, or if there's a caller that wants to get to a certain place, our call takers can proactively monitor that, and they can push traffic around these incidents. We also partner with several of our mapping vendors. So for example, this is Rapid Deploy. We partner with a bunch of different technology partners, and we also incorporate vehicle crash data from OnStar and other telematic providers. Most of these providers use the VED standard, which is the Vehicle Emergency Data Set. And so we can see crash data coming in with the call, or even before the call. So preemptively appearing on the screen, we can see additional data from the vehicle. We can see if it's been in a high-speed collision, if airbags have been deployed. Our call takers can even see extrication sheets if they need to, so they can alert the fire department that there may be a electric vehicle or hybrid vehicle that needs extrication, and that'll help a lot to save lives also, because and saving the fact that the firefighters can get really burned when they cut open the vehicle. So that's another set of additional data that we push through into the system. It's been incredibly useful for us. And some other tools we have built into the system as well. We have navigation built into our dispatch mapping. And this might seem like a small tool, but it's actually very useful. We can proactively help callers navigate around incidents. We can help them navigate to hospitals, for example, if there's an emergency event. And these directions can be sent to the call taker. So again, this is a really quick way for a call taker to take the call, to gather the data, and then send it to the actual 911 caller in a text message. And that can go into their text message string, and it can open up their native app. Could be Google Maps or Apple Maps, and they can navigate to that location without tying up the 911 call lines. Another important thing we've done is we partnered with TxDOT, and we are incorporating live traffic feeds into our system. And that's been really useful for different types of events, especially large planned events. And if there's been any wreck on the roadways, the call takers can instantly pull up a series of live traffic cameras, and that can give them a good situational awareness of that particular region. And these cameras can be shared with first responders as well, so they can see exactly what's happening before they go out on scene. We've seen some really good success stories of vehicle fires that have been reported, and the firefighters know exactly how to get there, what to do. They can see if it's been electric vehicles or hybrid, and how to navigate around that situation to get to their region. We're also planning to roll this out with FIFA when we do the World Cup and we do planning, to set up several different incident command stations where we can stream live video. And it's not just traffic cameras. We are partnering with other suppliers of cameras in terms of, let's say, FIFA, for example, the Arlington stadium and some other traffic feeds we can gather from them and other video feeds. So it's been very important to see this coming to fruition and been used widely across the region. And then just to highlight our council of governments, the transportation department does some amazing things over here. They have a system called 511, and it's been newly revamped. And this is essentially a SaaS solution that integrates different feeds from API vendors, also feeds like Here and Waze, the Dart, which is our local lightweight rail system, and then some of our larger railway systems as well, and all the different private toll road authorities too. So everything is pushed into one hub. And this data is something that we are working on to incorporate into 911. And right now, at the moment, if you do go to see the NCT Cog 501 system, it does have a great deal of information that's very useful for all the residents. This is accessible to the public. They also have a mobile app as well that has all of this data that's available. And there are several different elements of data streams here that we'd like to see incorporated into 911. So that's one of the biggest things we work on right now, is trying to figure out how to incorporate this data and work really closely with our technology partners to incorporate and access this feed. So here's a screenshot of the mobile app that's used in the region, and this is available for everyone to use. So as you can see, it does some similar features as reporting incidents and different technology that's incorporated, but we can also pull this back into 911. And that's a project that we are currently working on with our department. And that's my slides. Here's our information to reach out to us. And we've got Christy Williams' email address over here, but happy to answer any questions at the end of the session. Thank you.
Well, that was a lot of information, Roger. We do have some questions for you. We're going to jump right into those. All right. So the first question is the information you're showing, is it within your CAD system that has the Waze, the cameras, et cetera, and is it integrated within your map, or are you doing something outside of it? You mentioned working with Esri, and just want to make sure we clarify where your integrations between these systems lie. Yeah,
good question. What I showed today was integrated into our dispatch maps. That's what we use for our call handling equipment. So it's the map that's going to show caller location and all the different GIS data types that are available in the map. Our CAD vendors in our region, we don't oversee the CAD. So there are CAD vendors that do different things. In terms of the feed and how we push it into Waze, the platforms we use are agnostic to GIS platforms. So we can push in open source data or data through Esri streams. We chose to use what's called Geo Event Server, which allows us to manipulate different services like REST services that come into the system, and we can control exactly what type of data elements we push into that system. So in Waze, we take the feed, we get all the data elements into our server, in our GIS server, and then we can basically just filter out the events that we think, and that our call takers think is the most pertinent for them to do their job.
Okay, great. Our next question for you, Roger, is, are you using computer vision AI on the video feeds? In other words, any real-time collision detection or identifying wrong-way drivers, pedestrians on the highways, anything like that?
Great question. We aren't, NCT is not right now. I believe that TechStart is looking at that technology along with our Council of Government's Transportation Department. So there's more to come there. Be really interested to see what happens. But at the moment, we don't monitor that. But we do have the ability to set up critical incident boards of different regions. So if there's a large event and there are going to be several incidents along a corridor, we can set up a video board that shows all the different incidents that occur on that roadway. So if it's been monitored in the PSAP, it's often put onto a separate screen, and they can practically see if there's been an incident, and they can dispatch to their region. And that the location information for that particular crash is often gleaned from the Waze feed, or it's taken from the actual crash data that comes through from a connected vehicle or OnStar, Bosch, etc.
So I know you talked a little bit about working with different parts of the councils of government, and Texas is, set up in in those regions in a lot of different ways. But our previous session was talking about interfacing with the Highway Safety Office. As you guys work on these programs, are you working with your state highway safety office or engaging beyond your council of governments?
Good question, Brian. That's actually why I wanted to come up to you guys at NENA SVP, because that's something that I'm really interested in doing. Our council of governments, it works very closely with the traffic management sensors, and we'd like to do a lot more with NHTSA. We'd like to also incorporate wrong-way driving. That's been it's had a very big impact in this region. We've seen some awful incidents. So that is something we're trying to understand and incorporate into the system. We're hoping that we can push it through a FEMA feed that would come through the IPAWS system, so we can actually proactively monitor those events and then alert first responders. But that is something we are looking at.
Great. That would be a very innovative use to connect traffic safety stuff through IPAWS. So our next question for you, what are the realized benefits for the public to use the Regions app? I think we're talking about the 511 app rather than using apps such as Waze to report information.
Great question. Yeah. And I'll say that I'm not the SME on the 511 system, but I know that people use it. It's more, I'd say, outside of the call flow of 911. So that's something that's used not within a live situation. It could be used just to report incidents as they see them or report different metrics, but not something that we've seen used in a call. So I'd say, Waze technology and other technologies used in the call itself. And the 511 system is often used from the mobile app side outside of the 911 stream.
Okay, great. With the Waze integration, and I don't know if you covered this or not, but is it really just one direction, you sending stuff to Waze, or are you also able to take what Waze is seeing from crowdsourced and pull that into your 911 center?
So we're seeing everything from Waze, which is all the crowdsourced information. So we get all of that into the system. We do have the ability to push data back to Waze. We just don't see a large use of that with our call takers because they are so busy. So we have seen some of our cities that have the resources can push data back into Waze. For example, Collin County in the city of Frisco, they will proactively push data into Waze. And if there's construction zones or they know something is coming up, they will use the CCP or Connected Cities program, as it's called now, and push data into the system. So it all depends on the region. We haven't seen like a wide adoption of the bidirectional flow, but we rely on the data coming from the crowdsourced environments from Waze.
But I know across the nation, there are 911 centers that will post like their traffic crashes up on a website or something like that. I mean, it is something that if your agencies wanted you to, you could probably automate a bidirectional flow from your CAD into Waze, correct?
Correct. We could. And we did at one point, we partnered with a company called Genesis Pulse, and the CAD systems were able to do that. But our region has got about 22 different CAD vendors, which makes it quite a challenge. So we're looking at some of the systems we are doing CAD to CAD. We can see different incidents from different CAD providers into one space. So I think it'd be really interesting to see what we could do after that and automate incidents and push it back into Waze.
Yeah, I think what you just said is worth repeating. So from NCT 911's point of view, your centers are how many different CAD systems?
We've got roughly about 23.
Okay. So again, you're supporting and historically are supporting their 911 call flow process and stuff like that, but you're not, it's not like you have oversight over each individual 911 center in your area.
Correct. As far as CAD goes, we are responsible for the network and delivering the 911 call and then the location side of things, the mapping side. As far as the CAD and dispatch side goes, as many agencies in Texas work the same way, that's separate, and each ECC is responsible for sourcing their own CAD vendor, which makes it a challenge, as you can imagine, because we've got various different CAD vendors, various different incidents, which is why interoperability for us is a challenge. So we have to rely on our partners to integrate and do over-the-top solutions or CAD to CAD solutions, so we can incorporate that data and we can actually see that on one screen.
Makes sense. All right. So the next question we have is probably one that many people are thinking and asking about, which is you've talked about so much different integration and all the challenges, but what's the overall cost or investment that NCT has made into this? And that may be hard to extrapolate, but I mean, I would assume at least there's some cost and definitely a lot of man hours to make this stuff work.
Yeah, I mean, I think there always is. With Waze in particular, because Waze provides the feed for free for public safety, it was as simple as, what can be as simple as incorporating a web service like a Esri REST service into your map. They do make that available, and once you become a Connected Citizens or Connected Cities partner, you can incorporate that feed. I think it's really advantageous to rely on existing partnerships that are out there. So with many of our mapping partners already business partners with Waze. So the cost to get that onto the map is part of the contract. It's going to be built into the solution, or it's just a free service. From the development side of things, we did a bit more on the Esri side, where we were using different technology to filter out Waze events, but it was nothing that was over the top. I mean, I wouldn't say it was anything more than a few $1,000s to spend some time and to work on that system. And we have existing Esri servers and technology that we have in place. So there's no additional infrastructure investments that we had to make. And after that, I think the other part too of this is just the training side. So of course, we've got to take into account the fact that we train over 450 call takers on using any new technology. So we do build up a training resource, and obviously several different hours or several different technologies and hours that goes into providing that training for the call takers, and that's something to take into consideration. But beyond that, I think that the more advanced we go into this, and we look into our technology providers, it's really important to make sure that you've written your contracts and RFPs in the right way, because you've got to think forward and think of what you can do and build this into a contract. And your technology partners out there have got the ability to incorporate this information already without the agency itself going through much of the cost.
Right. Our next question for you, and I'm not sure that you'll be able to answer this, but I wouldn't put it past you, is do you know if Waze is a partner with Rapid SOS?
Yes, they are, as of June 2024.
Okay, great. So did that impact your implementation process?
We have redundant mapping systems, I'll put it that way. So we have, depending on our ECCs, we provide different resources for them. Each one of our providers offers different technology, which is good. I mean, it does take a bit more training. So we use Rapid Deploy, we use Rapid SOS, and depending on the ECC and their use case, they may use one or the other. As far as Waze goes, we've seen much higher adoption in the Rapid Deploy system because we configure the feed, and we can adjust the amount of data that gets pushed through into that feed. But I think both mapping providers are seeing usage of it.
Right. Well, at this time, Roger, that ends our questions. We don't have any other questions for you. I appreciate your time. With that, let me go ahead and move to the last slide here. I want to thank all of our speakers today and panelists for their valuable contributions on this important topic. We want to thank everyone who was able to attend the webinar. Your participation highlights the strength and dedication of the 911 community. Please remember to complete the post-webinar survey and check 911.gov for archived recordings of today's session. We hope to see you at our next webinar, and that information is below. And if you're not registered to get email notifications of the information on the webinars, you can follow that by scanning the QR code there. And with that, I'd like to thank you all, and hopefully you all will have a great day. Thank you.